everyone. Today is kind of an exciting day, a little bit nerve-wracking also. It's been a long time coming. People close to me know I've been talking about making a YouTube channel for a long time, just for the simple fact that this is pretty much what I do. I'm always out in the garage, and so why not start recording it and try to make something out of it. We've also got, it's not just my car, and that's why I didn't make it just about what I'm doing, kind of including my dad, brother, and uncle. My brother's got a 91 Fox, my dad's got a 65 Cornet, and my uncle has a Cuda, and that's pretty much our lives. That's what we're usually working on, whether it's off season or in season. So the first video is going to be a throwback to, at the beginning of September, I decided to go to PFI Speedfest out in Nebraska at Kearney Raceway Park, and it was a super cool experience. Can't wait to go to another one of those events, and it was really special because it was my first win, and I really didn't expect to win. I just could get the time off work and wanted to go support the event. So for that to be my first win, and for my first win to be at a PFI event, I look up a lot to those dudes. I've been watching them for as long as I've had the car, like 7 years at least, and they've been a lot of motivation for a lot of the things that I've done. So it was really cool to have that event with those guys be my first win ever. And I've got plenty of in-car footage. I don't have much other footage because I wasn't sure what we were going to be doing. With the YouTube thing at the time, it was definitely a thought. But this will just be either me cutting in between each round of eliminations and the qualifying to give a little bit of commentary, or maybe some voiceovers if I can figure that out, because I'm probably the most technologically illiterate person that's ever tried to do this, so it's going to be fun. Got to try to figure out some of this editing stuff, and hopefully I'll just learn as we go and get better. But yeah, we'll go ahead and cut to qualifier 1, maybe sprinkle in some of the road trip to get there, but let's do it. So going into round 1, I was, in the lane next to that silver Supra that I'll race again later on in the video. Going into round 1, I wasn't sure what the tune-up was going to be like because this is my first time being out of the state, and the elevation was higher. I'm not sure what the DA was. I know I was paying attention to it, but so I look back at my logs, and the closest 1150 tune-up I had, I just put it in there. And I might have added a little bit to it, just knowing that we're higher elevation, but it was not enough. This is one of the only full passes I make for the day, and it wound up being an 11.9. Didn't make enough boost. So for qualifier 2, I raced a 4-door green Civic sedan, a B-Series turbo setup if I'm not mistaken, and I took the data from qualifier 1, and because I wasn't used to what the boost controller was doing, it was taking more, obviously more duty cycle to make the same amount of boost. I knew what I put in it was probably going to overshoot it. I didn't think it was going to overshoot it this much. It was a pretty decent pass. I ended up running an 11.2 and that was the last full pass I made of the event. During all of the eliminations, I was letting off right around the 1,000-foot mark just to, you know, avoid breaking out because I didn't need to stay in it. But yeah, it took a lot more duty cycle on the boost controller to make that same amount of boost. And I took that data and kind of met in the middle for round 1 of eliminations. So round 1 of eliminations wound up being the tightest margin of victory of the night, and it was super crazy, super close race. I was out on them. I got to the 1,000-foot mark. I let off, and then I heard him coming up on my left side, so I kind of got back in it for a second, then let off again. And it's funny because the margin of victory was actually 0.007. You know, that's super tight. And I had no clue. I wasn't familiar with their timing system, their wind lights stuff. So I didn't know if I won or not until I got my time slip. But I think it's crazy. I let off, and then I got back in it for like a split second. And to me, I'm like, if I hadn't got back in it for that split second, he would have got me, because it was that tight of a margin of victory. So super close race. And I talked to that dude later. Super cool guy. I think he's a local to Kearney, Nebraska. But yeah, it was a super good race. So eliminations round 2. I want to say, so I was racing Del Sol with I know a V6. It might be supercharged. I can't remember. Seemed like a super cool dude. I think he's actually done Rocky Mountain Race Week, so that's pretty cool, at least once. And he's pretty close with the guys from Nursing Garage. But I think he had some problems getting off the line. I know he had a bunch of wheel speed, was spinning, and I was way out on him. Once again, ended up letting off around the 1,000-foot mark. The crappy thing about me letting off, that's how you have to do it when you're index racing. You know, if you're way out on somebody, there's no sense in staying in it and risking breaking out of your dial in, basically. But the crappy thing was, I still had not made a pass out there that was an 1150. So I had no clue. You know, the cool thing about Fuel Tech is you can take your time slip and put your incrementals in. And I had put my incrementals in from my, I think, 11.2 pass. And then, you know, I was putting my incrementals in from round 1 eliminations. And then after round 2, I put my incrementals in for that data log. And basically it was me letting off at the 1,000-foot mark and comparing my 1,000-foot ET to when I let off. I did some quick math, and it was like, man, if I stayed in it, it would be an 1150, but it wasn't worth the risk. I was far out enough that it just was not worth the risk of staying in it. So I kept letting off when I felt like I could. So this puts me going into round 3 of eliminations against that silver Supra. So we'll flip to that. So round 3 of eliminations, like I said, it was me and the silver Supra. It was really cool to win that race. I felt really outgunned, and I like not throwing shade or anything, but it's a little different whenever you're in an import race and an index class, and you're racing other cars that are front wheel drive, H pattern manual cars. Because anybody who knows anything about racing knows that a front-wheel drive H-pattern manual car is just about the hardest car to get consistent in. There's just a lot of variables. And that Supra, if I'm not mistaken, it was an automatic. It's rear-wheel drive. It's a lot easier to be consistent and do the same thing every time to dial the car in and that setup. So I felt like I was the underdog. I kind of felt like I had something to prove. Really, probably no reason for it, but I felt really proud of myself for winning that one. It wasn't a close race. I think, I got him off the tree. I didn't talk to him. I don't know what happened, but he still, even with me getting him off the tree, he still didn't run what he had been running throughout the day. Maybe I scared him. I don't know. But I was super pumped about winning that race. Almost more excited, I think, than taking home the win overall. But we'll go ahead and flip to the race against Ralph. Alrighty guys, that concludes racing for today's video. Had a blast. It was a super tight race. In the finals, me versus Ralph. So here in a second, we're gonna get into the math that I was doing, that I was talking about. Sorry, I was just making sure the camera's on the right setting. But I just wanted to real quick say thanks to Nursing Garage, Devin from Nursing Garage. Kind of, I talked to him a little bit and told him, like, hey man, I'm out here by myself. It kind of sucked when I realized I was going rounds. I'm like, man, wish my family was here. And I can't blame them for not wanting to drop everything last minute and make a 14-hour trip to Nebraska. I completely understand. And honestly, the events I had raced at before that they were there for went pretty bad. Just stupid issues like, really staging the car, rolling through the beams, not having a good routine down for even just simply staging the car. That got me a couple times. But Devin from Nursing Garage was super cool, was hyping me up for the, I think, semifinals and the finals was whenever he started kind of recording, and he's got a video of it on his YouTube, and obviously so does PFI Speed. But we'll get into the math. So like I said, I didn't make a full pass in eliminations. The only full passes I made were during qualifying, because it's not a big deal if you break out in qualifying usually. Usually it might be if you're like at a big event and there's a ton of people trying to get into the class, but we didn't have that problem. I think it was 12 cars that ended up in the 1150 class. So let's see here. and I'll flip the camera around and show you guys what I'm talking about. So if you're on Fuel Tech, you might know this. I'm sure Fuel Tech's not the only software that allows you to do this. So you can put your incrementals in. So just copy and paste basically your time slip into the data log, so you can see what's going on where, what part of the run. And every one of my logs, I was letting out right around the 1,000 foot mark. So this is round 1 of eliminations, and this is my second qualifier where I ran 11.2. So that would have broke out in eliminations. So what I did was, and I'm gonna try to not butcher explaining this. So let me prop this up. I'm getting a little shaky, too much coffee. So I took the difference between my 1,000 foot times for my second qualifier and round 1 of eliminations. And that was 2.5 tenths of a second. And when you subtract that time from my quarter mile ET from round 1 of eliminations, you get an 11.506. So what that is saying is, in theory, because I changed the tune-up, right? I had it way too hot, ran a little too fast, or 2.5 tenths too fast, right? And I took that number and subtracted it from my round 1 ET, and that's basically saying that had I not, let's see here, had I not let out of this pass and aborted it, or not aborted it, had I not let out when I did, and you can see I got back in it, the orange line is my TPS. So that was whenever I was racing the Saturn, and I just gave it a little bit of gas because I was like, oh man, I hear him coming up on me. So had I not let out at the 1,000 foot mark, and would have stayed in it throughout this time, the whole time, the math is saying that I would have ran an 11.506. Now that's not accounting for the blip of the throttle right there, but I made a couple other changes in between round 1 of eliminations. So obviously that's in theory, and everything else changes, but my 60 foots for that day were like, I had a 1708 60. Let's see if I can get it to focus. Yeah, 1708 60, and round 1 of eliminations, and a 1715 60 in my second qualifier. So the car was really consistent in the short track. So I believe this number, and I was banking on it, but I wasn't willing to run a pass all the way out, because it's not worth it. If you're out on them, you let out. It's not worth breaking out and losing the race. So, but that's what I was talking about whenever I was saying I was doing math. And that's kind of the crappy thing about an index race is, especially like if this would have been at my home tracks, like Trails or Killcare, I would go into an 1150 class knowing what the car is going to do. But I got out there and it was just a different ball game, elevation, weather-wise, track, surface. So I was trying to get enough data to get the car really dialed into 1150. Unfortunately, I couldn't, but I made do with what I had and got close. It kills me to this day that I wasn't able to make a full pass, because I was like, dude, if I make a full pass, it's going to be like an 11.50 something, maybe an 11.51, which is pretty decently competitive, especially if you've got a good reaction time and an index class. But yeah, until next time, I plan on going to another PFI event. So, and I'll do a better job of recording for that. So, appreciate you guys watching. Like, comment, and subscribe.